Welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris. This is the history of Baghdad, the medieval world's greatest city. Before I get started, I just want to say I returned from vacation. I took a couple days and I traveled. And you're not really going to be able to see this one, but I got a couple of new whiskey drinking glasses. I got my, you can't really see it here, presidential seal, and then at the bottom that is Harry S. Truman's signature, and then presidential seal, Dwight Eisenhower Presidential Library Museum, Abilene, Kansas. I also took a detour and stopped off at the boyhood home and original grave of Jesse James. Didn't expect that one. And I passed the boyhood home of World War I General John Pershing, but I didn't stop there. I kind of wish I would have now. I didn't plan for it. I was just trying to kind of go. But I boo-booed myself here, so I'm trying to make sure it doesn't bleed. But I'm going to probably break this down into two videos just because the average view time is about 12 minutes. So that's why I'm breaking things down. If people were curious, I want to stop talking and video.
Curiosity Stream. Get access to my video streaming service, Nebula, when you sign up for Curiosity Stream using the link in the description. This is Baghdad, home to 7 million people. This sprawling urban jungle is the second largest city in the Arab world after Cairo. But between the skyscrapers and honking cars, you can see the remains of this city's magnificent medieval past. This once round city's walls crumbled long ago, but it was here 1,000 years ago that brilliant scientists, architects, writers and merchants of different races and religions made massive contributions to the knowledge of humanity. Back when Paris and London were home to just 20,000 people, over 1 million Baghdadis lived here, among canals, libraries and palm trees. So what is the history of Baghdad? What's a house of wisdom? And what does it have to do with medieval robots trying to get everyone drunk? Well, let's find out.
1,000 years.
So it's 632 CE and the Prophet Muhammad has just died. And he left behind a religion called Islam that was adopted by his people, the Arabs. Do you know what I was thinking? Do you know what we should do? Conquer everything. Oh our God, I was thinking the same thing. And well, they did. This is 11,100,000 square kilometers of land, spanning 3 continents. It's been like 90 years since Muhammad died. How do you do this? Ancient Red Bull? Is it just me? Or was that easier than you thought it was going to be? Yeah. This expansion happened under the Rashidun and then the Umayyad Caliphates. Their rulers were caliphs or successors, and the Umayyad Caliphate was based here in Damascus, Syria. But the Umayyads had some internal issues. Their caliphate excluded non-Arabs from positions of power even if they were Muslim. Millions of Christians, Jews and non-Arab Muslims like Iranians, Egyptians and Berbers living in the massive empire's recently conquered lands were not huge fans of this policy. Spotting this weakness, Abu al-Abbas, with huge support from Iranians, destroyed the Umayyad armies, wiped out the dynasty and founded the Abbasid Caliphate in its place in 750 CE. The new Abbasid Caliphate needed a capital away from Arabia and Syria and closer to where its power base was, Iran. The second Abbasid Caliph, Al-Mansur, located a strategic spot in Mesopotamia that already had a small market town called Suk Baghdad. This town was ancient. It was even mentioned in documents from King Hammurabi's time, around 1750 BCE. Geographically, it was perfect, right in the middle of the trade routes between the Persian Gulf, Armenia, Egypt, Syria, China and the Byzantine Empire. Plus, it was right between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Founded in 762 CE, the city went by a few names, like Mandinat al-Salam, the City of Peace. But it seems like the old market town's name, Baghdad, stuck. Al-Mansur had the city built in a perfect circle, around 2.7 kilometers in diameter, protected by 3 concentric brick walls and a fancy moat. The city had 4 massive gates from which came 4 roads. Each gate was named for the city it faced: Damascus, Basra, Kufa and Khorasan. These connected Baghdad to the world but made it clear that this city was the symbolic centre of a new world. Behind each gate were 3 arcades lined with markets acting like the arteries of the city. Between these main streets were the residential neighbourhoods. At the core of the city was a huge open green space. There you could find the Caliph's Palace of the Golden Gate, topped with a giant green dome, with the central mosque by its side. The city was surrounded by a network of canals, creating fertile land for agriculture. The city had thousands of fountains and public baths open to everyone. People would walk near the streams, spread out on the grass and collect fruit and flowers from the stunning gardens across the city. In its large parks you could see horse racing and polo, or, if you wanted to, you could visit the zoo, displaying lions, elephants, giraffes and all sorts of wild animals. On the canals, dotted with palm trees, you could see thousands of gondolas dancing like sunbeams on the water, carrying the inhabitants of the city from one part of Baghdad to the other. And according...
Considering the time, this seems like just like a utopia for, I would say, travelers, but I don't know yet how. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't allow them, but you know, if you're passing through, man, you're probably looking forward to it. Oh, we're going to be going to Baghdad, or we're passing through. Well, let's make a stop. It seems like a really awesome place for the time. You know, yeah, it was probably ahead of its time.
To legend, the city had no mosquitoes, which is very important because 1. Mosquitoes are pure evil, and 2. Malaria, not fun. While a round city looks cool, it only lasted for about 70 years. You see, his palace in the centre was supposed to protect the Caliph because there were hundreds of thousands of peasants between the Caliph and whoever wanted to kill him. It was like a great wall of peasants, which is a great idea until you realise that also meant once enemy troops took over the city, there was no way for the Caliph to escape. The Great Wall of Peasants is kind of sneaky that way. The increasingly busy and chaotic markets inside the walls seemed like a security risk, so the Caliph al-Mansur moved them outside the walls where suburbs were already growing rapidly. The round city was swallowed up by the thriving suburbs and soon vanished. Now the whole area was Baghdad. The bricks of the round city's walls were used to build this new growing Baghdad, and it became this cosmopolitan trading hub linking the east and the west. Their ships traded as far as the Baltic to Madagascar to China. Furs from Russia, African gold, Indonesian spices, Indian steel, silks from China, you could find all of it in Baghdad. They traded so widely that this bronze cross with an Arabic inscription that says Bismillah, which means in the name of God, was discovered in a bog in Ireland, which is a fair bit away from Baghdad. Between the years 900 and 1000 of the Common Era, the city reached 1 million inhabitants, making it the world's largest city, truly the metropolis of its time. And Baghdad peaked under the rule of its most famous caliph, Harun al-Rashid. Harun was the son of the third caliph, al-Mahdi, by one of his wives, al-Hazuran, who is a fascinating woman, by the way. Al-Hazuran was a slave given to al-Mahdi by his father. At the time, many of the concubines of nobles were well educated. Some learned writing, poetry, music, dance, history, philosophy and science. Al-Mahdi fell madly in love with Hazuran. She convinced him not only to free her from slavery, but also to make her his official wife. and she used this to build considerable power. She sat with her husband at court, which was unusual at the time, and met with his ministers behind the scenes. She discussed state business with generals and foreign diplomats and managed the empire's administration. She made sure her sons, Musa al-Hadi and Harun al-Rashid, were placed ahead of the caliph's other sons as heirs to the empire. She used her wealth to fund canal building in Baghdad, and it is said that a quarter of the city was named after her. She built wells and shade-giving trees along pilgrimage routes to Mecca, and on one of her own pilgrimages she bought the house in which the Prophet Muhammad was born and turned it into a mosque. You can still go see it today, but it's a library now. Al-Mahdi died suddenly in 785 CE, which threw the empire into chaos. But Hazuran took control of the situation and secured a smooth transition of power to her older son, Musa al-Hadi. She stopped a military rebellion and had all of the military officers and court officials swear allegiance to her son, who wasn't even in Baghdad yet. And how does al-Hadi repay his mother? He gets jealous of her power, tries to push her out of political life, publicly humiliates her several times, and some sources say he even tried to have his own mother poisoned. After a year of ruling, at 24 years old, al-Hadi died of poisoning. So be nice to your mother. The new caliph,
Starting to see a trend with things around her.
Harun al-Rashid,
which is cool. You know, hey, do what you gotta do. I poured my own drink, so I'm good.
Adored his mother. When Hazuran died in November of 789, Harun helped carry her body barefoot through the mud on a rainy day as a sign of respect for the woman behind the reign of 3 caliphs. During his reign, Harun fought off invasions and rebellions to maintain his empire that spanned from India to North Africa. He forced the Byzantine Empire to pay him tribute, and during his reign, wealth poured into Baghdad. He was helped by the fact that the Abbasid military made a lot of improvements on the battlefield. From little things like adopting the stirrups in cavalry, which attached the rider to the horse, to the use of naphtha, a refined version of petroleum used in fire-based warfare. They developed these fire grenades called naphtha shells to throw at the enemy, and a section of the Abbasid army were called naphtha firemen, archers that specialised in flaming arrows, who, very wisely, wore fireproof suits that let them rush into the cities and castles that they had just set on fire. They also had a camel-based ambulance corps. This line is just in here because I liked it. They're camels. They're the llamas of the desert. The Abbasids oversaw a global network of merchants, spies and diplomats stretching from France to China. Harun al-Rashid once sent gifts to the Holy Roman Emperor Charlemagne. These gifts included silks, spices, books, and Abul Abbas, who was an elephant. Getting the elephant to France was probably pretty difficult, but once it arrived, Charlemagne was obsessed. Legend says he took Abul Abbas.
Okay guys, I just got all of the farmer's dog unboxed and everything comes frozen, which is awesome.
Great. I don't care.
Says he took Abul Abbas to battlefields and on travels, and when Charlemagne died, his remains were wrapped in a silk with an elephant print, which is just adorable. Harun and Charlemagne sent each other a lot of gifts and bonded over their shared hatred of the Byzantine Empire. Harun actually wrote a fairly sassy letter to the Byzantine Emperor that I love. It says, "The least of the territories ruled by the least of my subjects provides a revenue larger than your whole dominion." Harun was a great patron of the arts. Under his rule, Baghdad was full of artists, scholars and poets from 3 continents. This is how Harun al-Rashid ended up in one of the greatest pieces of literature of all time, Alf Layla wa Layla, or The 1001 Nights or Arabian Nights. The 1001 Nights is a collection of folk stories. The story of its origins say that an Iranian king called Shah Rayar marries a woman and then she cheats on him, and so he murders her. He marries many more times, but he has trust issues now, and so he kills every single one of his new brides. Side note, therapy did not exist yet. He then marries a woman called Scheherazade. On the first night after their marriage, she tells him a story that ends in a cliffhanger that she will only finish the next day. She does this for 1,000 nights and a night. The stories interest King Shahryar so much that he doesn't kill her, and they also make him wiser, less murdery, and make him fall deeply in love with Shahrazad. And they live happily ever after. She was fine with all of the previous murder, apparently.
I'm going to go ahead and stop this here, but I'll come back with part 2. When I break a video, for now on, when I break a video down into 2 parts, I'm going to release them back-to-back days, just so it's fresh. If this was just like a 12-minute video, I would just, and then there was a part 2, there was a 12-minute video, and they were all encompassed, I would release one, and then maybe later that week release the other one. So I'm trying to keep some things in order. Can't please everyone, but I'm trying. It's just very difficult. All right, well, I'm going to end this here. Like and subscribe, or that one woman's going to come poison your drink. Oh, goodbye.